Okay, fantastic. Let's make a start. So thank you everyone for joining and registering. Really appreciate your attendance. I think we've got some really interesting content to go through today. So just to introduce myself and the company, and then I'll hand over to Dennis. So I'm Andy Campbell. I'm the head of product at Applied Blockchain. So Applied Blockchain has been in the blockchain space since 2015. We've been building bespoke blockchain projects, including for Shell, who's our largest customer. And we also have a product suite called Silent Data, which we'll give some info to today. We're an association member of the ERC3643 association. We're very happy to be one. And yeah, I think that's a good intro for you. So over to you, Dennis.
Well, thank you, Andy. So as mentioned, I'm the president of the ERC3643 association, which I'll get into shortly. I also run a asset tokenization platform out of Abu Dhabi and Hong Kong called Peregrine, and I'm a strategic advisor to several prominent projects along the way. So thank you for having me today. It's very exciting to go through this.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah, so just the format of this. So essentially, Dennis will give an introduction to ERC3643 and an overview of the standard and a bit about the association. Then I'll give an overview of how we're using 3643 and some of the things that we add to the standard. And then at the end, we'll have a chance for Q&A. So please, any questions, you can just type them in the Q&A section on Zoom, and we'll get to those at the end. And if we have too many questions, then maybe we'll be in touch afterwards. But yeah, with that, over to you, Dennis. Please take it away.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll try to get the information in discrete chunks as we see fit, and look forward to everyone's questions. So 3643 is an official Ethereum standard. It reached its final status in December, where it got official approval from the Ethereum community. And the idea of the standard is really to provide additional registry and control and governance around the way we represent value on a decentralized environment or on a blockchain. This was building from prior standards such as ERC20, ERC721, and others that really help us define how we manage what are called tokens or units with different accounts. And what we found is that there needs to be a lot more control for regulatory and other applications around those units. And so the team behind 3643 put together this standard, which I'll go into a little more in depth. Along with that, they also put together an official proposal for the entire Ethereum community to review. Well, from the entire community reviewing it and adopting it, we realized that we actually could build a community around it as well. And so there's the ERC3643, which is the standard, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then there's the ERC3643 association, where we bring some of the best minds in the real world asset space together. Applied Blockchains being, of course, one of our showcase and wonderful members, advancing the capabilities of what's possible with the standard. And so the association, we're happy, has grown very well in 2 years that it's been around now. It's a nonprofit association. It's free to join, pending membership approval. And we have everyone from large blockchains to custodians to large investment and institutions, to even DeFi protocols and everyone in between. So it's a very eclectic group. We have several different working groups, different working projects, including working projects with law firms, even here in London, which is very exciting. We engage regulators around the world to help them understand and have a dialogue. And you will routinely see 3643 featured in publications for Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, the ECB, the FCA, the SEC, MSA, and of course the FSRA. And all these publications are hungry for information and hungry for what 3643 does. The way I describe 3643 is these three pillars on identity, registry, and token controls. And I keep it at a high level because my friend here, Andy, here will go and give us a great technical demonstration. The three things that matter, the first one is identity. The way we describe participants on chain is so much more fundamental. Just having a simple wallet address is not good enough for regulators. It's just too loose of a connection. Yes, we can go back and trace a wallet's activity, but we need something a bit more object oriented to assign roles and even deal with things like recovery. So identity is a big part of this. And the identity standard that's tied to 3643 is called on-chain ID. The second part is the registry. And registry is very key because the tokens, or in this case, the smart contracts that hold the tokens, aren't considered to be isolated. What this means is they can register into this registry, if you like to say. And what that means is a trusted issuer, someone or a group of users can issue claims that give permission, and those claims can be accepted by many tokens, many different token standards. So this is very good in practicality that if we have, let's say, a KYC claim that we want to give to our identity, that can then be mapped to many different tokens at one time. And so that registry giving you that kind of one-to-many fan out is very, very fundamental, and providing that governance layer on top. The one that everyone thinks about that's easiest to think about with 3643, of course, is the token contracts itself. And that has the most controls that we've seen on the blockchain yet. The biggest two that people usually focus on is around forced transfer and recovery. So forced transfer, or sometimes called clawback, is a concept that tokens were exchanged incorrectly for a variety of reasons. Could be error, could be fraud, whatever. And so that can be corrected by a registered party, or what we call an agent, specifically onto that token. Second thing is recovery, which is also very important. It allows holders of tokens that, should their wallet address become compromised for whatever reason on their side, the agents and owners of this token can come in and flip out their address and make everything right. In terms of control and granularity of control, there's plenty of things there, but some of the things I'll highlight is the ability to pause the entire token, pause individual accounts, pause individual tokens, and of course, do lots of batch functionality around mint, burn, and other things as well, mint, burn, transfer, etc. It's very communicative for a token standard. A lot of events are generated, and so it pairs very well with data oracle infrastructures as well. Chainlink being one of the major providers and that we have within the association that's working on top of that. So at a high level, that's the way 3643 works. You have identity to give us a better object of participants on chain. You have a registry that allows us to sign claims and fan them out to many tokens, as well as dictate different roles. And of course, you have a token control layer as well that makes it much easier to manage the balances and accounts ledger on chain. Andy, is there anything else you think I should touch on there?
No, I think that's really great. It's a great explanation. I've got like a couple of slides, yeah, as you say, going into a little bit more of the details. But yeah, I think that's great. I think like one of the things that's really impressed us with the standard is how much traction I think you guys have got, which is really fantastic for this space, because it is still emerging, right? Like that's the thing to keep in mind about RWAs, but it's still early days, but
it's exploding. I mean, I think one of the most exciting things about 3643 that you mentioned is, I've been in crypto, and I've had a 20-year career on Wall Street, as many of you know, and 3643 is probably one of the most catalyzing factors for encouraging large institutions to consider both private permission and public chains. And that shift into public infrastructure. I believe Larry Fink a few weeks ago even mentioned it, that the future may be public. I think is foundational, as you mentioned. So we're definitely seeing a lot of big names come in, officially and unofficially, of course. But everyone's very interested in the controls. And of course, ways we can improve it, which is where you guys have come in and done some really great work.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. So I guess that's over to me. Thanks very much, Dennis. So here. So yeah, essentially to get to the topic of the webinar after that fantastic introduction. So like what we're looking to do at Silent Data and with Silent Data is really add privacy and trust to ERC3643 tokens. So as mentioned by Dennis, why do we need a token standard for securities? So really, it's about the portability and efficiency, and essentially the existing standards not meeting the controls that we need when it comes to securities and real world assets, and other types of tokens. So ERC3643, just as a summary, not to go over the same material, is a standard for security tokens and really going beyond security tokens, not just security tokens, but has a focus towards security tokens. It's a compliance-first approach, and it brings controls and identity essentially to token standards. So I've actually split it into 4 pillars, but I think two of these are combined in one of the 3 core pillars. But in terms of like what we get from ERC3643, identity management, verifiable credentials, eligibility verification systems, and compliance rules. In terms of what we're doing with Silent Data is we're looking to add privacy to the identity management, eligibility, and verification system, and also the compliance rules, and then add another layer on the verifiable credentials to really open up a lot of systems to the verifiable credentials of ERC3643. So I'll go into that in the coming slides, but essentially that's what we're looking to do. So in terms of building on top of the pillars, what you can do to build on top of these pillars and why you would want to do this on a blockchain in the first place, essentially, is we can do things like security swaps, so swap security tokens, swap them for liquid tokens like fiat money or tokenized gold, or we could swap them for other securities. We can do conditional multi-party trading and conditional complex trades. And we can do real world asset instant settlement or security instant settlement, whatever that asset is, that tokenized asset, that settlement can be instant and conditional. That's really why we do things on blockchains, right? That's why we're really excited about the standard. In terms of a transaction walkthrough, I don't want to spend too long on this. I realize we've got a mixed audience, but please don't glaze over too much if you're not from a technical background. In terms of how this actually works, we have an initiation of a transaction and really a validator, which is validating compliance and compliance from both the point of view of the token, the issuance compliance, and the individual. So is the individual compliant? Are they from a compliant entity? Are they state? Sorry, are they a high net worth individual? Do they meet the requirements to hold this token? So that's a two-pronged approach from those 2 pillars. And really that's what this is. So in terms of interacting with the token, it works very similar to an ordinary token, but with those permission controls. So this is what we see as the challenges of doing these security tokens on, let's say, a public Ethereum or a public layer 2. And this is where we see ourselves as adding to the standard and where we think we've solved some of these things. So as an investor, if I'm investing on a public chain, is my identity and activity public? So it's complicated. So identities are known to claim issuers and token issuers. The activity is traceable by everyone. That's not the same as the identity being known by everyone, but the activity is traceable by everyone. So this can be a challenge for some institutions when coming in and saying, okay, are my trades going to be public? I think like this is the challenge really is this stuff often gets compared with traditional finance rails, and that's where the challenge is. Ultimately, there is more information being given away in certain use cases than there is traditionally.
Which is a huge issue. And believe it or not, and it's been a huge blocker for a while. Is the idea that in a decentralized environment, information is transmitted in ways that banks and institutions are not simply used to, and simply that can create more risk for that company to be comfortable with.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and it's certainly from our conversations with institutions and banks, this is a point of discomfort from them. There have been tokenized funds on public chains, but it's limited right now. I think in terms of if you were to say, let's move all of your activity out to the public chain, then a lot uncomfortable with that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a big philosophy too, Andy. As you go through your slides real quick, is how much of the new world goes on chain initially. And some banks have looked at this as just a secondary copy of what they already have, and others have been, as you know, more excited to have entirely decentralized and somewhere in between. And this, what you have here, is really kind of the core foundations to what we see long term as a mostly decentralized environment for banks.
Yeah, exactly. So the other challenge we see is who are the trusted claim issuers. So on diagrams, often we talk about KYC being done on chain, AML being done on chain in terms of whitelisting. In practice, often a lot of those providers aren't doing things directly on chain. Certainly the big ones, like the Equifaxes or government entities, they're not typically signing claims against individuals. When we talk about claims, I should just verify, we're talking about things like, is an investor high net worth? Like what you want really on chain, where these things like really gain me efficiency, is you want assigned, this wallet is a high net worth individual, this person is over 18, they're based in the UK, US, wherever it may be. You want those claims on chain so that you can do things atomically, essentially. And that's a challenge when you start talking about, okay, who are the legacy providers who are really trusted institutions to actually provide that information, essentially.
Yeah, you could always look at the claims, because I think this is a really good point, Andy. It is in 3643, we have both claims and compliance modules. And people ask all the time, well, what's the difference between a claim and compliance? Claim is always against the identity. It's effectively a permission structure, permission that identity may hold. It could be KYC. It could be that they're in an administrative role. It could be that they're a politically exposed person. It may even be that they have a certain qualification rubric, as you mentioned here. Investor has a high net worth and is based in based in UK and is over 18. Well, there could be another one too that says, and their source of funds is from a sale of a business, or the source of funds is from a trust structure or something like that. So claims are always against the identity, whatever it is. But as you can see here, this gets complicated fast for more mature use cases.
Yeah, for sure. Having just gone through a remortgage, I mean, it's hard enough to try and get them to do this in a digital way. later say, okay, yeah, we trust your source of funds. Never mind, like kind of getting them to sign this information on chain. This is it's a long way ahead of where these guys are at the moment.
Yes, and in fact, to your last point about banks and governments willing to do that, I think the UK, specifically the Treasury and the FCA, and a few other law firms, part of the association, have been, surprisingly to the audience, extremely progressive in understanding what exactly KYC looks like and KYC control looks like on chain. And so, in fact, newsflash to everyone, this is public, so I can disclose it. There will be a joint sandbox between the FCA and the SEC, a digital sandbox coming to explore this, even for cross-country applications on the KYC side. So more to come there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting initiatives. We've seen also some of the papers coming out of Lloyd's on this in terms of having this kind of not even necessarily cross-border, but cross-bank KYC, right? Being able to trust each other's credentials. And when you're talking about a blockchain system, that's really what you want. You need to have these are the rules of a token, these are the rules of a token moving, and if we meet those rules, it can move between parties. If it comes to each party needing to do their own checks again and again, then it's very hard to realize the efficiency.
It's almost impossible. And I think blockchain and decentralized ledger force a big thing that I think is worth talking about here. Is if you look at standards traditionally for banks, they're around communication standards. They're not around internal data structures. And so when you look at how a bank represents an asset or even performs KYC, those are considered to be internal IP and are guarded very closely. Having to force or mutually agree other counterparties, KYC brings a lot of big questions. Not only should these things be standardized, can they be standardized, and how does that occur? So KYC on chain is a non-trivial effort. I know we like to think, oh, let's assign the claim and I'll move on, but just solving universal KYC or mutually accepted KYC between counterparties at this level is quite significant for the variety of reasons I just talked about: the IP, security, risk assessment, identity, all those sort of things. So who issues the claim is just as important as the claim itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just to kind of summarize where we see the gaps today with like pure public chain solutions, it's really the activity being public, and not having these major parties on chain. As Dennis said, this might be shifting, right? Like some of this might actually be coming in, and they are exploring this. It just will take some time, and we do look in the longer term for these things to shift and these parties to be signing directly on chain. So with that, like with silent data rollup, like what we're really looking to do is we're looking to offer, like what we have, it offers programmable privacy with blockchains. So what this means is programmable privacy within smart contracts in an EVM-based approach, and interoperability with other chains through ZK EVM. There's a lot of technical terms there, but essentially the way that you can see this is having a blockchain in a controlled environment, inheriting the security of a decentralized chain through ZK proofs, but having programmable privacy within smart contracts. So having the rules be enforced in a private environment, but having the guarantees of those rules between parties. So where this is relevant with 3643 is it means that we can have confidential accounts, confidential balances, confidential transactions, confidential trades. We can have controlled sharing of self-sovereign identities. So when we have an on-chain ID and an identity contract, what we're able to do is actually say, okay, like I give you permission, this token permission to access my identity. So rather than it's not true that the full identity is public with on-chain ID anyway, but in terms of the claims within there being public, we're able to actually permission those claims up and have those be on a share-only basis with contracts. And it's fully compatible with ERC3643. So again, for non-technical people on the call, please excuse this very complex diagram, but this really is how ERC3643 is working. These are the stakeholders within. So we have investors, we have the trusted claim issuers, we have the identity contracts and permission tokens. So the token is really what's moving. The investors are investors. They're people who hold tokens, move tokens. Identity contracts really control the identity, and trusted claim issuers are the issuers of claims. So that's issuers of, yes, this person is over 18, yes, this person is in this state, against the identity. And how silent data rollup is powering the privacy is essentially by putting permissions around these contracts. So saying, okay, I'm going to share my claims with a token as an investor. So I want to use this token, therefore I'm going to share the claims. Similar to how, when you install an app on a phone, you say, okay, these are the permissions that this phone has. If you want to access the token, these are the permissions that this token has. And sharing the identity with the trusted claim issuers as well. So with that, we have a small demo, which is a relatively technical demo, but I'll give an overview of exactly how what this is doing. You don't have to worry too much with the details. I realize a black screen with text can be a bit intimidating, but essentially what's going on here is that we are deploying the T-Rex token standard. We're deploying the actual contracts of T-Rex. So this is deploying the ERC3643 tokens within the silent data rollup environment. So within this privacy preserving protected environment, which is backed by decentralized chains, we're deploying the contracts there. We're then deploying these additional privacy modules. And then this is really the important bit. So you can kind of discount this text. Really, like what we're doing is we're just checking that we're not able to move tokens unless the rules are met. So even though we're enhancing the privacy, we're essentially having private rules, not the rules being private, but the data that the rules are enforcing against is private. We're still able to enforce these rules on chain. We're still able to have private token private movements on chain, and with private enforcement of these rules on chain, essentially. So I know like this is a little bit in the weeds, but essentially it's just showing that like we are actually able to use the standard and add privacy to it in this way. Okay, and then we come to the second challenge that we see, which is really the fact that a lot of claim issuers today aren't on chain. And this is what we're addressing with Silent Data Oracle. So with Silent Data Oracle, we use a technology called Intel SGX, which is essentially, it's what's called a hardware secure enclave. So it's a protected chip on a machine where we can deploy an application. We can provide guarantees that we're not able to modify the running of that application, and we're able to process data in there in a privacy preserving way. So we can't access the data that's going between the chip and the web services. And we also, we're not able to modify the result which comes out. So because of the chip is being used for the processing and signing of data, we're not able to modify that, and we're not able to access that. So the thing that Silent Data Oracle is really doing is providing a guarantee to smart contracts of off-chain data sources. So services like Chainalysis, Elliptic, but equally from the previous slides, Moody's, Equifax, really anything with an API today can be integrated on-chain in a provable way, in a privacy protecting way, with strong guarantees of integrity that we haven't modified the data in any way, and also aren't able to access the underlying data. That's really key. And we're able to do that because of the guarantees that this hardware provides. So we've been developing this for over a year now. We launched last week at ECC, and we're currently available on the Polygon blockchain. But really, this is about providing that Web 2 world and those secure guarantees from those providers into the blockchain and into an ERC3643 environment. So essentially, like what this brings to the standard is it supports existing issuers and APIs, including open banking, KYC, AML, KYB, all of the credit score providers. There's no need to trust a proxy or require an Oracle network. Like when I say require an Oracle network, we don't need to give credentials to an Oracle network. Often this data is very sensitive when we're talking about KYC information and these things. Not having to give the keys to this network and having a hardware secure protection of it, very, very important. And it's fully compatible again with ERC3643. So in terms of where this is fitting, it's really supplementing the on-chain ID. So it's not replacing it in any way. It's really just providing those verifiable credentials to the existing on-chain ID, from providers who aren't natively on chain at the moment. People may look at this, if you're familiar with elliptic chainalysis, you might think that they are natively on chain. They're processing on chain information, but they're not signing claims on chain. So it's really getting those signatures of claims from the existing providers, open banking providers, Moody's, KYC, KYB, AML. And again, just another brief demo. This one is slightly less technical than the last one, but so essentially what I want to show here is how to do a check through Chainalysis and have a permission token move only if the Chainalysis risk score is low. So if there's a low chance that funds are stolen, have touched what we call a mixer, or any other like high risk transactions through the history of an account or through the history of a token. So essentially, within Silent Data, what we're able to provide is a call out to the Chainalysis API to do a check that the risk score is low. We're able to call back to the contract to say, yes, the risk score is low. This wallet is okay. And what this really means in practice is it means that we're able to enforce these checks when sending a token. So if I want to send, as an issuer, I want to send a token to a client, I can select the client, I try to send them some tokens, and this is a not whitelisted client. So if I try to send them some tokens, and I can confirm that transaction in my wallet, you see that transaction failed. So we get a failed transaction there. And the reason is that user is not on the whitelist. So then we can request that they're added to the whitelist. This is going to screen that wallet address within the Chainalysis platform. And it's going to screen it in a way where we're not able to access the credentials, and we're able to provide that strong guarantee from the Chainalysis platform to the contract. So we can see within Silent Data that that's run. And then if we go back to our wallet and we try and do exactly the same transaction again, but now the user is on the whitelist. So same client, but now has been added, and we send the tokens, we confirm. Now the transaction will go through. So we're now able to send the tokens, and that's because the user has had that check performed. You can see it's fairly non-invasive. There's no additional UI element here. I'm just using a standard wallet. It's fully compatible with ERC3643, and we're able to provide those kind of credentials. Okay, so with that, I'd like to open up to the Q&A. I can see a few. Dennis, are you able to access the questions as well?
Yeah, I see a few good ones. I answered a couple. So the one that I answered I thought was good is the association open to freelancers and software developers? Right now, as you can imagine, we're a very small team, the association. We're about five people, volunteer staff. We get on average about a dozen or so requests per day. So right now we're in the process of putting on larger institutions and organizations. But what I tell people is please go to ERC3643.org. You can apply there very easily, whether you're an individual or a small group, and we'll get you guys on a case-by-case basis. And feel free to join the community on social media links as we post on LinkedIn, X, Twitter, and all the other big ones as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, I can just say that the process of joining the association was incredibly smooth and well managed. So shout out to Evie and the team.
I can world class.
Yeah, I can see a question from Eham. As far as I know, institutions prefer to go private blockchain to handle privacy issue. Isn't this enough? What would be the drawbacks of being on private blockchain? So this is a really good question. Private blockchain is typically where institutions have been playing with things so far. What we see in practice is these private blockchains existing in silos. So essentially having, one bank has their, I won't say any names, but one bank has their private blockchain, another bank has their private blockchain, and this really limits the efficiency of the technology, because essentially there isn't a shared ledger where they're interacting. That means they're not getting atomic transactions, they're not getting the logic involved in programmable payments. So what's the advantage of a solution like silent data? It's really that you get the security of a blockchain with a single, with the privacy of a private blockchain, or actually what we see is enhanced privacy of a private blockchain, which is enforced through confidential compute, but in one place. So we can have a single deployment. So rather than having these one deployment per organization, per institution, which actually can work out quite expensive, difficult to maintain, difficult to operate. And also we're seeing that in a lot of cases, it just isn't happening. They can actually have a shared ledger where they're able to interact. They still get fully enforceable privacy and privacy within smart contracts. But they get the security of whichever network they're posting a proof to. Just one little follow-up question. Sorry, I'll just sneak another one in because I see you haven't answered another question, which is silent data a ZK2 roll-up like Base, Linear, StartNet? It's not. So it's a privacy wrapper for these roll-ups. So essentially, we're wrapping ZK roll-ups. So Linear, StartNet, a good example is Polygon CDK, ZK Sync. We're providing the privacy layer for these so that you can have privacy within smart contracts.
Andy, I loved your answer on that, on Ilham's first question. I would say that I have a few thoughts for this because I think it's such a good one. First of all, different institutions think differently. And this really comes down to buy side and sell side. So the sell side, which are your large commercial banks that have all the regulatory risk, carry a lot of the infrastructure costs, and really facilitate a lot of the market infrastructure, think very differently than the buy side, which largely provides product liquidity and kind of a lot of the commercial motivations. And what we've seen is the large banks, go into these siloed experimentation. Single use case, by the way, is another big thing I want to also mention is a lot of these blockchains that banks work on have only one function, which is maybe a settlement around netting, settlement around private debt, settlement around carbon credits, or whatever. The shift that we've seen is all of those siloed chains really don't scale well because then you get into these interoperability complexities where one chain that just manages your cash leg versus another chain that manages your asset leg have to, even within a blockchain, have to interact. And so we've seen other projects, I could speak about them publicly. These are your Canton, your Spruces as well, that are being embraced by these sell-side banks, realizing that they have to kind of come together, and they kind of want their cake and eat it too. They want to maintain the level of privacy and participation. So we lumped in private permission chains. I call these public permission chains in the sense that you can walk up to it, you can see what's going on, but you have to be permissioned in a sense to participate, whether that's your large institution or not. In the same point in time, we've seen large, buy-side institutions like asset managers like BlackRock and Brevan Howard and a few and Franklin Templeton being much more aggressive on the public side, and so that's creating a large gravity for these sell-side banks, which have been kind of hesitant to go onto public chains, to come onto the public chains because, again, that's the natural tension. One side pulls the other. The side that brings the product, the liquidity, those motivations, they're saying, hey, you know what? Actually, the whole reason for blockchain beyond just replacing a database, replacing a message queue, is utility, is distribution, is liquidity. So we have to have networks of scale for that, and we're only going to get that on at least international, large-scale, permissioned, or if not outright, public networks. So the future is absolutely going to be some form of a public network interaction.
Awesome. Yeah, 100% with you on that. It's the direction that we see. It's the direction of travel we see as well. Is things essentially being backed or secured by public chains. I think I see there's a couple of questions which are kind of overlapping from Gustav and Freddie, which is one is, does the Oracle require that data providers use an SGX enclave? No, it doesn't. So the our technology is being powered by SGX enclaves, but essentially the data provider doesn't have to have any involvement with the blockchain. They only have to do a Web2 API. So as long as they offer a Web2 API, you can tie them in as a claim provider. They don't have to have awareness of blockchain or modify their system in any way. We use the enclave to secure this and provide the strong guarantees via TLS that actually they essentially what they have said and what the provide an attestation of the result essentially from them. And another is from Freddie, which is more or less the same question, which is, do you support other providers? You mentioned elliptic and Chainalysis, but do you support SumSub? Yes, we support any Web2 API. So it's the same answer really. Like any Web2 API you can imagine that you want on chain, we support out of the box essentially.
Andy, I see a question that's easy for me to take, which is, are ERC3643 smart contracts public? Where can they be found? By Miguel. Yes, they are. You can go to GitHub, or you could go to ERC3643.org. Either way will get you to the same destination. We have docs. We have little pilots you can download that other members have created. And we have the full code and even the audit report from Hackin that you can check out there. So it's all there. If there's something you're looking for that you don't see, you can reach out on ERC3643 to the team, and we'll see if we can get you what you're looking for.
Okay, fantastic. I know we've got some questions open. I'll try and take some of them offline. So please reach out if we didn't answer your question. Yeah, as we're a little bit over, just a little information in terms of where you can find us. So Silent Data, we're at silentdata.com. You can scan the QR code or just head to silentdata.com. But please, reach out to me. I think my email is on the invite, but we'll be sending out emails, so you'll be able to reach me. And Dennis, over to you.
Yeah, Andy, a pleasure as always, and tons of stuff to cover here, and really great questions by the audience. You can find me on my public profiles at Real Dennis O. I'm on X and LinkedIn. And of course, you can follow the ERC3643 Association on LinkedIn, X, and Twitter, and other social media platforms. And come become part of the community. And as you can see, with great folks like Applied Blockchain, there is much work to be done. And there's a lot of innovation yet for this standard. And so we're excited for the future and excited what the community can do together. So don't be a stranger. Please do reach out. And Andy, pleasure today. Thank you for having me today. Looking forward to the next one.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining. Have a good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you're based. But fantastic. And thank you very much.